Okay, our Pelham Memories today is with Marilyn Stiefvater of Stiefvater Real Estate, who came to Pelham 50 years ago and got into the business of real estate. Marilyn, would you tell us about your memories?
Well, coming here was to be as close to New York City as possible. We'd been in Pasadena, and the children were very young. We probably moved 13 times in a small length of time. And this was so close to the city, and it was a wise choice. And having been here, it'll be 50 years in July. I can't believe that that much time has gone by. The children were very young. Scott, who's now the president of the company, was 4 years old at the time. And we were reminiscing the other day about the nursery school that he went to and the other schools that the kids ended up going to. And I had a nursing degree from Columbia University, and I wanted to put it to use, but it meant steady full-time working, which didn't fit in with childcare necessarily. I would have preferred being home rather than working an 8-hour shift anyplace. Plus, my husband at the time thought that it would be better if I spent time with the children. So that meant several part-time jobs. And as it turned out, I did spend several years as a substitute nurse at Pelham High School, and at the same time was teaching art, junior high art. And if they needed a nurse when I was teaching junior high art, they'd find somebody else to do my teaching job. And so from there, Jean Hardy, who's still a broker, real estate broker with my office, took me to lunch at the Manor Club one day and said that her broker, Norman York, was looking for another real estate agent. Would I be interested? And I'd always had an interest in architecture and art. And so I went to meet Norman, and one thing led to another. I apprenticed with him for 2 weeks and loved it, and tried to spend as much flex time at home as possible. So from there, that was in 1969, one thing led to another, and he retired in 1974, which was when I took the business over. But it's interesting in that at that time, you could buy a really nice house, and I don't mean a starter house, a really nice house, for $40,000. I can remember the first one on Pelhamdale Avenue that would probably sell for close to $2 million right now in the first block of Pelhamdale. And it sold for $35,000 then.
And that year was?
That was probably in 1974, 5, 6, around that.
And to be a real estate agent, what kind of qualifications did you need? Did you have to go to school?
Actually, we needed only to pass a test, which was a 45-hour, I think it was a class first and then a test. Then when it came to the broker's license, it was another 45 hours and a test. And so I did that right away too, and got my broker's license, which enabled me to take the office over really. Times have changed though, because there are more stringent requirements now, and people seem to be meeting them. There are more people in real estate than I think any other profession, and they keep coming, even with the recession when it started in 2008. People were leaving businesses either because they were being fired or they were retiring, coming into real estate, getting licensed. So it opened up the whole door to people from out of Pelham, really, coming into Pelham and attempting to sell our real estate here. And that's only escalated with the advent of the internet and websites that every office has now.
So when you had your first office and you were in charge, were you the only woman who had an office, or was Ann DeSantis?
There was one other woman, and it was Ann DeSantis. And she and I were friendly competitors, let me put it that way. But I had 4 women working with me. We were at 87 Wolf's Lane, which was the 3rd floor above Dreyer's Pharmacy at the time, if anybody remembers Dreyer's Pharmacy. And the Pelham Sun, our weekly newspaper, which preceded you, was downstairs at 89 Wolf's Lane, which was right next door. And from there, when Norman York decided to hang up his license or take it down, we moved down the street to 31 Fifth Avenue, which was right across the street from the town hall. And we had a big window to display houses in, and it worked magnificently. It was a big draw. It really started us on the right path. We listed and sold a lot of houses. I think on the strength of the window that we had working for us, that everybody looked in. And the bank was Chemical Bank next door at the time, and they were open Thursday evenings. So we decided we would open Thursday evenings too, and we drew a little bit more of a crowd at that point because of it.
Was Carol Cleaners still there?
Carol Cleaners was still there, and let's see, a nail place. No, it was actually a laundromat next door to us on the other side, and now it is a nail place, I think. I'm not sure what it is right now. There have been so many changes and so many nail shops.
Was there a grocery store where did Chico's?
There was a wonderful grocery store, and where I lost my diamond engagement ring probably. But at any rate, yes, it certainly was not as extensive and wonderful as Chico's is now, but it was there. And another grocery store in town turned out to be right next door to my office here. We're at 303 Wolf's Lane, and in the big brick building on the corner was Gristedes, which I would hit on my way home as many times as I could because their meat was so outstanding. And they were very popular in town, but then the advent of other supermarkets in the manor that came and went and are still coming and going opened, and it really put Gristedes out of business then. The little mom and pop stores that were all over Pelham and still are.
So when did you move here to 303 Wolf's Lane?
Actually, Sotheby's International Realty. We were affiliated with them back in the early 70s, and it was 1974 that I bought this building, and they had listed it with me, actually, at $169,500. And that was, as I said, in a little beyond 74, but we've been here going on 48 years, I think it is, however that adds up. But this was a derelict boarding house at the time that was owned by W.T. Grant. The W.T. Grant, for those people who haven't heard of him, the department store millionaire, billionaire, whatever he was, who lived in Pelham up on Cliff Avenue at the time. And he bought it at the turn of the century, and it was, after that, the White Hotel. And the building was built in 1874, and when we renovated it in 1988, it was, the whole building really should have been demolished. But we had some great people working on it, and we took it down practically to the bone, as they say, and had a lot of fun trying to renovate and keep some of the old features like the moldings and the two marble fireplaces, and discovered there was a mahogany staircase out in the hallway, which was painted over and ugly. At any rate, we took the summer and restored it, renovated it, and had sort of a grand opening that fall. We've invited people ever since to come in if they'd like to see the building because of its historic nature, really. So from there, we actually considered ourselves to be a little boutique real estate company because we weren't franchised at the time, but we did become franchised. We joined Prudential Real Estate Affiliates for their 7-year contract time, and left after the 7 years because it hadn't changed things much for this office, as much as it should have perhaps. But it's such a small town, and at the time there were 5 offices. I think there are 7 now. But the board that we had as a little Pelham real estate chapter was small enough that we really got along well, and everybody worked together before the corporate chapter that we had was disbanded.
So how about prices of houses? You've seen them go from those $60,000 to Like
and
4 million.
There was a steady appreciation, except for a couple of recessions. A minor one in 82, 83, minor in that it didn't last long, and it wasn't as extensive as the one that started again when the bubble burst in 2008. And since 2008, we're finally reclaiming some of the real estate that was lost during that recession. And while prices are not all the way back up, they have appreciated by maybe 5% over last year, which is saying something. And we're expecting that things will continue at least through the end of this year to appreciate, and who knows after that. It's a game that changes all the time, which makes it interesting. You can't anticipate or predict anything from week to week, really. So,
now, when you first started selling Pelham real estate, you selling Pelham, what were the top 3 reasons why you told people to come to Pelham, and have they changed?
well, I think they knew. I don't think we had to tell them much. They knew how excellent the schools were. They knew that it was a very short, less than half an hour commute into Manhattan and Grand Central. And then also the lovely pre-war houses, the smallness of the town, and the fact that as one person started her little company called Stroller Mamas, it's a town where you can just stroll from business to business and up and down the main street in no time, being 2.4, I think it is, square miles from tip to toe. So that was all of those things made such a difference to people coming to Westchester County, and there were people living here who worked in the city who would tell their friends about it, which helped too. We've got a huge community of entrepreneurial people, doctors, lawyers too, and New York Times people who live here. It's developed a lot more since dual career couples started moving in and that whole feminist movement started. We've seen the prices go up accordingly or as a result, and it hasn't changed that much. I think there's maybe a little trend now because of people losing their jobs, more moms and or dads staying home, which has changed the town to one degree or another. And I don't know if it's going to continue or not. But it's like the doctors these days, the trend seems to be, from what I'm reading and hearing, there are doctors that are starting to make house calls again, as they did when we moved here. The position that we had was probably the only one that most of Pelham used. He lived here and he made house calls.
So do you have any predictions?
No, I would be going out on a limb if I did. We kind of predicted the bubble back in '08 though, because the prices were escalating so quickly and to such a high level that, well, I'll speak for myself. I personally couldn't see how much longer it could go on. And little did we know what was happening on Wall Street and otherwise, and throughout the country to the extent that it did. So I hope we won't see anything like that again. The banks have tightened up. There are fewer foreclosures, although there were not very many in Pelham to begin with. Short sales, a few of those, still pending. And I don't think we're going to see that anymore for a while. I certainly hope not. I think that whole recession from '08 on affected a lot of people, including in Pelham. Maybe not Pelham so much as Westchester and other counties in New York State, but people living in New York City and Manhattan have been affected, I think, tremendously.
And just to conclude, you have your children living here.
That's a big point with me, Maggie, because I was so fortunate. I raised 3 children here, and now we're up to 7 grandchildren, and there's only 1 left in the Pelham school system. Of the others, 3 have graduated from college, 3 are in college, and now we have my Maggie, who's a junior in high school. So that's
You think
something
they'll
to
come?
be proud of. I've been so fortunate. I think it's very unusual that they've stayed so close to home, that I've had the benefit of watching them grow up and knowing them as I do and as young adults now. It's really, and that's Pelham. I think the big attraction is if you can come here and stay here, and have your children move back here once they've left. It's just been it's been wonderful for me. It's made my life, really.
Oh, thank you very much, Marilyn.
You're welcome.